The massive alien coalition fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. Their ships stretched across space like a metallic cloud, thousands of vessels gleaming under the distant sun. Admiral Ross of the coalition forces smiled as he watched the sensor readings of the local defense fleet, if you could even call it that. Only 10 ships, he scoffed, his multiple eyes blinking in amusement. The reports said humans were primitive, but this is simply embarrassing. The human fleet hung in space before them, a mere handful of vessels that looked plain and unimpressive. Their hulls were smooth, lacking the ornate designs and visible weapon systems that decorated coalition ships. To the alien observers, they appeared almost like cargo vessels rather than warships. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Baker, the coalition's chief communications officer, "the human fleet is hailing us." "Put them on screen," Admiral Ross ordered, straightening his uniform. "Let's see these primitives." The main view screen flickered to life, showing the human command center. Admiral James Walker of the Earth Defense Force stood calmly, hands clasped behind his back. His weathered face showed neither fear nor concern at the overwhelming force before him. "This is Admiral Walker of the Earth Defense Force. You have entered restricted space. State your intentions." Admiral Ross couldn't contain his laugh, a harsh sound that echoed through his bridge. "Restricted space. My dear primitive, do you have any idea who you're addressing? This is the combined coalition fleet, representing 37 advanced civilizations. We've come to discuss your species' integration into our empire." Walker's expression remained neutral. "We are aware of the coalition, Admiral. We are also aware that you've absorbed 12 smaller civilizations in the past year alone. Some might call that conquest rather than integration." The alien admiral's amusement faded slightly. This human spoke with more authority than expected, but it hardly mattered. The coalition's smallest ship could probably destroy their entire fleet. "You seem well informed," Ross replied, "but poorly equipped. Is this truly Earth's defense force? 10 small ships against our armada. Size isn't everything, Admiral," Walker said quietly. "Neither are appearances." Several coalition officers chuckled at this, their various alien features showing different signs of amusement. One of them, Commander Tull, stepped forward to whisper in Ross's ear. "Sir, preliminary scans show their ships are using basic fusion drives. No quantum technology, no advanced shield systems. They're practically defenseless." Ross nodded, his confidence growing. "Listen carefully, human. Your species has 2 options. Surrender now and accept coalition rule, or face immediate destruction. Your tiny fleet cannot hope to resist us." Walker sighed, almost looking disappointed. "Admiral Ross, I'm going to give you one chance to turn around. Not because we fear your fleet, but because we prefer to avoid unnecessary bloodshed." The alien bridge erupted in laughter. Ross had to wait several moments for his crew to calm down before responding. "You dare threaten us? With what?" "Those primitive vessels that look like they barely achieved spaceflight." He leaned forward, all 4 arms gripping his command chair. "Our smallest ship carries enough firepower to level one of your cities. We have thousands of ships. You have 10. "Numbers can be deceiving," Walker replied. "So can appearances. This is your final warning, Admiral. Leave Earth space now." Ross had dealt with many species, but none so foolishly brave. Or was it simply foolish? As these humans. He turned to his tactical officer. "Target their lid ship. A small demonstration should help them understand their situation." "Sir," the tactical officer reported, targeting systems locked on their flagship. Ross turned back to the screen, where Walker still stood calmly. "Perhaps a practical lesson is in order. After we destroy your flagship, you'll better understand your position." For the first time, Walker smiled. It wasn't a smile of fear or submission. It was the kind of smile that made several coalition officers shift uncomfortably in their stations. "Admiral Ross," Walker said quietly, "you're about to learn why making assumptions can be dangerous, especially assumptions about humans. Ross waved his hand dismissively. Fire the warning shot. The Coalition's forward batteries launched a devastating beam of energy toward the human flagship. What happened next would be discussed in Coalition space for decades to come. The shot never reached its target. The warning shot from the Coalition's most powerful forward battery simply vanished 3 kilometers from the human flagship. There was no explosion, no shield flare, nothing. The beam of energy simply ceased to exist. Admiral Ross blinked all 4 of his eyes in confusion. What happened? Report. Sir, his tactical officer stammered. The energy reading just disappeared, as if it hit some kind of void. On the view screen, Admiral Walker's smile hadn't changed. Would you like to know what just happened, Admiral Ross? Or should we skip the explanation and move straight to the demonstration? Before Ross could respond, his sensor officer shouted in alarm. Sir, we're detecting massive energy readings from the human vessels. They're unlike anything in our database. The smooth, plain hulls of the human ships began to change. What looked like simple metal started to ripple and shift, revealing complex patterns of technology that had been perfectly hidden beneath their surfaces. Panels slid away, exposing weapon systems that made the Coalition's best technology look primitive in comparison. Impossible, Commander Toll whispered. Those readings, they're operating on quantum matrices we've never even theorized. Admiral Walker's voice came through clear and calm. What you're seeing, Admiral Ross, is the result of centuries of humanity preparing for this exact moment. We knew we weren't alone in the universe. We knew someone would come. And we knew they would probably underestimate us. The sensor officer's voice was shaking now. Sir, their power outputs are. I can't even measure them. Our systems can't comprehend the readings. Each of our ships, Walker continued, contains an AI core more advanced than your entire fleet's combined computing power. Our hulls are made of self-repairing quantum-aligned metal that can adapt to any attack. That void that ate your warning shot, that's our dark matter defense grid. It doesn't deflect energy. It removes it from existence. Ross stood from his command chair, his confidence replaced by growing concern. This is some kind of trick, some illusion. No trick, Admiral. Just human ingenuity. You see, we learned long ago that looking harmless has its advantages. While other species built bigger ships and flashier weapons, we focused on efficiency and innovation. Every vessel you see before you could take on your entire fleet alone. The Coalition bridge crew watched in stunned silence as more transformations took place across the human fleet. What had appeared to be simple communications arrays unfolded into complex weapon systems. The basic fusion drives revealed themselves to be quantum propulsion engines that defied the laws of physics as the Coalition understood them. Sir, the tactical officer reported, his voice barely a whisper, I'm detecting targeting locks from the human vessels. They've had weapons locked on every critical system of our ships since we arrived. We never even detected it. Walker leaned forward slightly on the screen. Would you like to know the most interesting part, Admiral Ross? Those basic scans your ships performed. They weren't scanning us. We were scanning you. We know every weakness in your shields, every flaw in your weapon systems, every vulnerable point in your ship designs. Our eyes have already calculated 47 different ways to disable your entire fleet without destroying a single ship. Ross sank back into his chair, the full weight of his mistake crashing down on him. But you're supposed to be primitive. Our intelligence. Your intelligence was exactly what we wanted it to be, Walker replied. Everything your spies learned about Earth was what we let them learn. Every piece of technology they observed was carefully crafted to appear simple and unthreatening. We've been playing a very long game, Admiral. The human ships had completed their transformation. Where there had been 10 seemingly primitive vessels, there now floated 10 of the most advanced warships ever seen in the galaxy. Their true forms seemed to bend light itself, their weapons humming with power that made the Coalition's best technology look like children's toys. So, Walker said, his voice still calm and measured. "Would you like to reconsider your position about Earth joining your coalition? Or should we provide a more detailed demonstration of human technological superiority?" For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Ross felt true fear. He had come to conquer a primitive species, only to find himself facing something far beyond his comprehension. And the humans were just getting started. Admiral Ross felt sweat dripping down his neck as he stared at the transformed human fleet. His command staff sat frozen at their stations, their instruments showing readings that defied everything they thought they knew about technology. "Admiral Walker," Ross said, trying to keep his voice steady, "perhaps we should discuss this situation diplomatically." "Now you want diplomacy." Walker's voice carried a hint of steel beneath its calm exterior. "After threatening to destroy our ships and demanding our surrender." The massive coalition fleet hung motionless in space. Despite outnumbering the humans 1,000 to 1, not a single alien captain dared to make a move. The raw power emanating from the human vessels had turned the hunters into the hunted. "Our intelligence was clearly flawed," Ross admitted. "We had no idea your species had achieved such advancement." Walker nodded slowly. "That was the point, Admiral. Humanity learned long ago that appearing weak while being strong is far more advantageous than appearing strong while being weak. Now you have exactly 5 minutes to begin retreating from Earth space." Ross felt his pride stir, despite his fear. "You can't expect us to just turn around and leave. The coalition does not retreat." 4 minutes and 40 seconds, Walker replied calmly. "And yes, you will retreat. Because if you don't, we'll be forced to demonstrate exactly why challenging humanity was your worst mistake." Commander Toll rushed to Ross's side with a datapad. "Sir, our deep scans are showing. It's impossible. Their ships aren't just advanced. They're breaking laws of physics we thought were absolute. The power readings suggest they could." "Could what, Commander?" "They could destroy our entire fleet without depleting even 1% of their energy reserves." Walker's voice cut through their conversation. 3 minutes. "Admiral Ross, I should mention that we've already disabled your fleet's ability to enter hyperspace. Any ship that tries will find itself stranded in normal space." Ross's 4 hands clenched into fists. "You're bluffing. No technology could." Before he could finish, one of his escort ships attempted to jump to hyperspace. The resulting effect was spectacular and terrifying. The ship's hyperspace field simply collapsed, leaving it drifting helplessly. "That was a demonstration," Walker explained. "We call it our quantum lock system. Your ships go nowhere without our permission." 2 minutes remaining. Ross turned to his tactical officer. "Can we fight?" The tactical officer shook his head. "Sir, their targeting systems are unlike anything we've ever encountered. They've had weapons locked on every critical system of every ship since before we detected them. If they fire..." He left the sentence unfinished. 1 minute, Admiral Ross," Walker announced. "I should mention that we're being quite generous. Most species who threaten Earth don't get warnings at all." Ross felt the weight of command crushing down on him. Thousands of ships, millions of crew members, all now at the mercy of 10 human vessels that had completely outplayed them. 30 seconds. "Choose wisely, Admiral." "If we retreat," Ross said quickly, "what assurance do we have that you won't simply destroy us anyway?" Walker's expression softened slightly. "Unlike you, Admiral, we don't destroy those who pose no threat. Return to coalition space. Tell your leaders what you've seen here. Let them know that Earth is not to be trifled with, but we're also not interested in conquest. We simply wish to be left alone." 10 seconds. Ross closed his eyes briefly, then opened them with resolve. "All ships, prepare to retreat. Standard formation, minimum speed until we clear the system's edge." "A wise choice," Walker nodded. "We'll escort you to the system boundary." "And Admiral Ross, when you report this to your superiors, make sure they understand something. What you've seen today is just a fraction of humanity's capabilities. We're showing you this much as a courtesy and a warning." As the coalition fleet began its humiliating withdrawal, Ross couldn't help but ask one final question. How? How did you hide all this from us? Walker's reply sent chills down Ross's spine. Admiral, if you think our ships are impressive, you should see what else we've been hiding. But let's hope you never have to find out. Safe journey home. The Coalition fleet retreated under the watchful eyes of the human ships, their crews coming to terms with a shocking realization. They hadn't found a primitive species to conquer. They'd awakened a sleeping giant that had been waiting for them all along. The retreat was proceeding smoothly until Commander Vex, one of Ross's most aggressive fleet captains, broke formation without warning. For the glory of the Coalition. Vex's voice boomed across all channels as his dreadnought turned and unleashed its full weapons array at the nearest human vessel. No, Ross shouted, but it was too late. The scene that followed seemed to unfold in slow motion. Thousands of energy beams, missiles, and plasma torpedoes streaked toward the human ship. The Coalition crew watched, expecting at least some damage from such a massive barrage. Instead, they witnessed something extraordinary. The human vessel didn't dodge. It didn't raise shields. It simply shifted. The entire hull rippled like water, and every single weapon fired by Vex's ship passed harmlessly through the space where the vessel had been, only to find it had somehow reformed slightly offset from its original position. Phase-shifting technology. Walker's voice came through calmly. We don't need to dodge attacks when we can simply exist between moments of time. Before anyone could respond, the human ship's response was devastating in its elegance. A single pulse of energy, barely visible to the naked eye, shot out from what appeared to be a tiny port on its hull. The beam connected with Vex's massive dreadnought. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, every weapon system on the Coalition vessel simultaneously powered down. The ship's lights flickered and died, leaving it floating helplessly in space. A courtesy shot, Walker explained. We disabled his weapons and power systems without harming the crew. However, this incident voids our previous agreement. Ross watched in horror as the other Coalition ships began breaking formation, their captains panicking at the display of power they'd just witnessed. Some tried to flee, others prepared to fight. All ships maintained formation, Ross ordered, but discipline was already breaking down. 3 more Coalition vessels opened fire, their attacks just as ineffective as Vex's had been. The human ships responded with terrifying precision. Each targeted vessel found itself completely disabled, their crews trapped inside powerless hulks of metal. Your fleet lacks discipline, Admiral Ross, Walker observed. Perhaps a more thorough demonstration is required. The human ships began to move, their formation shifting into what looked like a simple geometric pattern. But as Ross watched his sensor displays, he realized with growing dread that the pattern wasn't simple at all. It was creating some kind of quantum-level field that was expanding outward. Sir, his sensor officer called out. The field. It's rewriting the local laws of physics. Coalition ships that tried to fire found their weapons refusing to function. Those attempting to flee discovered their engines only worked at a fraction of their normal power. The human vessels had somehow created a zone of space where they dictated the very rules of reality. Impossible, Ross whispered. No species has ever controlled space-time itself. Walker finished for him. We achieved that breakthrough centuries ago. Admiral, though we rarely find cause to demonstrate it. A group of Coalition heavy cruisers, desperate and terrified, concentrated their fire on a single human ship. The combined firepower would have been enough to destroy a small moon. Instead, the human vessel absorbed the energy, its hull glowing briefly before redirecting the entire attack into empty space as a brilliant beam of light. We tried to let you leave peacefully, Walker said, his voice carrying a note of resignation. Now we'll have to do this the hard way. The human ships began moving through the Coalition fleet with deliberate purpose. Each pass left more vessels powerless and drifting, their crews untouched but their ships reduced to floating metal shells. This is systematic humiliation. Commander Tull observed quietly. They're not just defeating us. They're showing us how completely outmatched we are. Ross watched as decades of coalition naval superiority crumbled before 10 human ships. Every tactic they tried failed. Every weapon they launched was rendered useless. Every attempt to flee was thwarted by technology so advanced it seemed like magic. "Admiral Walker," Ross called out, his voice heavy with defeat. "We surrender. Completely and unconditionally." "Accepted," Walker replied. "Now shall we discuss the terms of the Coalition's future relationship with Earth? I believe you'll find we can be quite reasonable allies when we're not being threatened with conquest." The remaining active Coalition ships powered down their weapons, their crews watching in stunned silence as humanity demonstrated just how badly they had underestimated Earth's defenders. Admiral Walker's expression turned serious as new readings appeared on his command screens. "Admiral Ross, we're detecting additional Coalition forces entering the system. It seems your fleet wasn't alone." Through the quantum distortions of space, 3 massive Coalition battle groups emerged, their weapons already powered and targeting systems active. These weren't just regular forces, they were the Coalition's elite guard, ships that had never known defeat. "The High Command," Ross whispered. "They must have been waiting to see if we needed reinforcement." The new Coalition forces took position around the disabled fleet. Their commander, Grand Admiral Rex, appeared on all channels, his massive form filling the screen. "So these are the humans who dare resist the Coalition." Rex's voice boomed. "I've come to correct this situation personally." Walker's response was measured. "Your forces are already disabled, Grand Admiral. More ships won't change the outcome." "Those were regular fleet vessels," Rex sneered. "These are elite guard ships. Our technology is generations ahead of the standard fleet." The elite guard ships began a complex attack pattern, one that had broken the defenses of 100 worlds. Their weapons were indeed far more advanced: antimatter cannons, dark energy projectors, and temporal disruptors that could age a target to dust in seconds. Walker simply nodded to his fleet. "Show them what happens when you push humans too far." The 10 human vessels suddenly split apart, each ship somehow dividing into 3 identical copies of itself. The copies were no illusion. Each was fully real, created through technology that could duplicate matter at the quantum level. 30 ships, Rex laughed. "You think that will help?" "No," Walker replied. "We think this will help." Each human vessel and its copies began emitting a strange field that bent light around them. The elite guard's targeting systems suddenly went haywire, unable to lock onto ships that existed in multiple quantum states simultaneously. "Fire at will," Rex ordered, his confidence starting to crack. The elite guard unleashed everything they had. Space itself seemed to burn with the intensity of their attack. Yet when the energy blasts cleared, the human fleet remained untouched. Now it was humanity's turn to demonstrate real power. The human ships moved in perfect synchronization, their technology operating on levels that made the elite guard's advanced weapons look like ancient relics. Each vessel projected a field that didn't just disable enemy ships, it rewrote their operating principles at the atomic level. Elite guard vessels began to transform. Their mighty weapons turned inward, their power cores reversed polarity, their shields became prisons trapping them in bubbles of altered spacetime. What are you doing to my ships?" Rex demanded, real fear in his voice for the first time. "Teaching you a lesson about humanity," Walker replied calmly. "You see, we don't just build advanced technology. We understand the fundamental laws of the universe in ways your scientists haven't even dreamed of. Your ships aren't being destroyed, they're being reprogrammed. At the quantum level." The elite guard battle group, pride of the Coalition fleet, found itself helpless as human technology systematically dismantled their defenses. Ships that tried to flee discovered their engines now operated in reverse. Weapons that fired found their energy turning into harmless light shows. "This is impossible," Rex roared. "No species can have this level of control over matter and energy. Humanity has had 3 centuries to prepare for this moment." Walker explained. While you built bigger ships, we learned to manipulate reality itself. While you developed stronger weapons, we transcended the need for traditional combat entirely. The last of the elite guard vessels fell silent, their crews watching in helpless awe as their mighty ships were reduced to floating museums of obsolete technology. Ross, who had watched the entire display in stunned silence, finally spoke. All this time, Earth wasn't hiding from the galaxy. Earth was waiting to see who would be foolish enough to strike first. Walker nodded. We prefer peace, Admiral Ross, but when pushed to war, humanity doesn't believe in fighting fair. We believe in fighting smart. The human ships began to reform into their original configuration, the quantum duplicates merging back into their parent vessels. They had just defeated the most powerful fleet in known space without destroying a single ship or taking a single life. The message was clear. Humanity hadn't just achieved technological superiority. They had evolved beyond the very concept of conventional warfare. In the aftermath of the battle, the coalition commanders gathered on their flagship's bridge, watching helplessly as their mighty fleet drifted powerless in space. Grand Admiral Rex, his pride shattered, stood before the communication screen where Admiral Walker's image remained steady and calm. You've had this technology all along, Rex said, his voice hollow. All those years we watched Earth, thinking you were just developing basic spaceflight. We saw your scouts, Walker confirmed. We saw your probes. We let them see exactly what we wanted them to see. A young species, just beginning to reach for the stars. Through the viewing ports, the human ships glowed with a soft blue light, their true forms now fully revealed. What had appeared as simple vessels now showed their true nature, ships that seemed to exist partially outside normal spacetime, their hulls rippling with energy that defied understanding. Our greatest scientists, Commander Tull spoke up, they'll want to study this technology, perhaps in exchange of. No, Walker cut him off gently. You're not ready for this technology. Your civilization still thinks in terms of conquest and domination. This power requires a different kind of thinking. The internal communications of the coalition fleet had exploded with panic and confusion. Reports flooded in from every ship, weapons offline, engines dead, even life support systems operating only at the mercy of the human technology that now controlled them. A junior officer rushed to Rex with a datapad. Sir, we're receiving transmissions from coalition space. Other human ships have been detected near our core worlds. Rex's face paled. How many? Just one ship near each major system, sir. But they're the same design as these. Walker nodded. We've had ships stationed near every coalition world for the past 50 years. Invisible, waiting. Had you actually attacked Earth, your entire civilization would have been disabled simultaneously. We don't believe in leaving things to chance. The revelation hit the coalition commanders like a physical blow. They hadn't just miscalculated in attacking Earth. They had never even been in control of their own space. Admiral Ross stepped forward. The trading ships, the civilian vessels we've seen from Earth, were they? All part of the deception, Walker confirmed. Each one carried technology far beyond your scanning capabilities. We studied you, learned your weaknesses, mapped your defenses, not for conquest, but for protection. The coalition leaders watched as their sensor readings finally began to make sense. The human ships weren't just vessels. They were mobile platforms of technology so advanced it could locally rewrite the laws of physics. Each one carried computing power that exceeded the sum total of coalition technology. Why reveal yourselves now? Rex demanded. Why not stay hidden? Walker's expression softened slightly. Because you forced our hand, but also because it's time. The galaxy is changing. New threats are emerging from deep space. Humanity decided it was time to step out of the shadows and take a more active role in galactic affairs. Through the windows, the human ships began a new transformation. Their hulls shifted, revealing layers of technology that seemed to fold in on themselves in impossible ways. Energy patterns danced across their surfaces in mathematical sequences that made coalition scientists stare in wonder. "This is what humanity has become," Walker explained. "Not conquerors, not empire builders, but guardians. We could have destroyed your fleet. Instead, we chose to disable it. We could have conquered your worlds. Instead, we chose to protect them secretly." Rex slumped in his command chair, the full weight of understanding crushing his military pride. "What happens now?" "Now," Walker said, "we offer the Coalition a choice. Continue on your path of conquest and face permanent technological regression, or join us in protecting the galaxy from real threats. Your ships will remain disabled until you decide." The human vessels began to move into a new formation, their impossible geometry creating patterns in space that defied Coalition sensors' ability to interpret. "You have one standard day to communicate your decision to your leadership," Walker concluded. "Choose wisely. Humanity's patience is vast, but not infinite." The Coalition commanders looked at each other, then back at their mighty fleet, now helpless before 10 ships they had dared to mock. They had wanted to find primitive humans to conquer. Instead, they had discovered something far more profound, a species that had transcended conventional warfare to become something entirely new. The galaxy would never be the same. 24 hours passed like a lifetime for the Coalition leaders. In that time, reports flooded in from across their territory. Every major military installation, every fleet base, every strategic position had a human vessel quietly watching it. The ships had been there for years, undetected, patient, waiting. The Coalition High Council's decision arrived just as the deadline approached. Grand Admiral Rex stood before the communication screen, his usual arrogance replaced by a new humility as he addressed Admiral Walker. "The Coalition accepts humanity's terms," Rex announced formally. "We choose cooperation over conflict." Walker nodded, and with a gesture, power began returning to the Coalition vessels. Systems came online, but something was different. The ship's weapons remained altered, their destructive capability transformed into defensive systems. "Your fleet has been modified," Walker explained. "Your ships can now protect and defend, but they can no longer be used for conquest. Consider it a gesture of good faith and a precaution." Through the viewing ports, Coalition crews watched in amazement as their ships' hulls rippled with new energy patterns. What had been weapons of war were now tools of peace, transformed by technology that bordered on the miraculous. "There's something else you should see," Walker said, and with another gesture, a new image appeared on every screen in the Coalition fleet. It showed a massive object moving through deep space, far beyond the galaxy's outer rim. The object was larger than a planet, its surface covered in technology that made even humanity's advanced ships look primitive. "This is why we revealed ourselves," Walker explained. "This entity approaches our galaxy. It's not the only one. Humanity has been preparing for their arrival for centuries. We needed to stop the Coalition's expansion because we need allies, not enemies, for what's coming." The Coalition commanders stared at the image in horror and fascination. Rex found his voice first. "What is it?" "We don't know," Walker admitted, "but we know it's not alone, and we know it's not friendly. This is why humanity developed our technology the way we did. Not for power, not for conquest, but for survival. Everyone's survival." The human ships began moving into a new formation, their energy fields extending to encompass the Coalition fleet. Within these fields, Coalition crews felt their understanding expanding, as if the very presence of human technology was teaching them new ways of thinking. "Your scientists will begin receiving data packets," Walker continued. "Basic principles that will help you understand what we're facing. Your military leaders will receive strategic information. Your civilian authorities will receive preparation protocols. Together, we have a chance. Divided, we fall." Admiral Ross stepped forward. "All this time, we thought we were the advanced ones, coming to civilize the galaxy. But you were the ones watching over us, weren't you? Protecting us while we played at being conquerors." Walker's expression softened. Humanity learned long ago that true power isn't about destruction. It's about preservation. Every species we've secretly watched over has potential. The Coalition's problem wasn't lack of advancement. It was lack of purpose. The image of the approaching entity loomed on every screen, a reminder of why humanity had finally stepped out of the shadows. The Coalition fleet, its weapons transformed into shields, its engines modified with human technology, hung in space as a symbol of change. "We offer you more than peace," Walker said. "We offer you evolution." The human ships you see aren't just vessels. They're teachers, guides, gateways to understanding the universe in ways your people are ready to begin learning. The Coalition commanders looked at their modified ships, their new sensors already showing them aspects of reality they had never known existed. What had begun as an attempted conquest had transformed into something far more profound. First contact not just with an advanced species, but with humanity's true nature as guardians of the galaxy. "Welcome," Walker said finally, "to the real war. Not against each other, but for survival itself. Your fleets of conquest are gone, but something better is beginning." As the human ships prepared to guide the Coalition fleet home, their crews understood that the galaxy had changed forever. The species they had mocked for its tiny fleet had turned out to be something far greater, not just masters of technology, but masters of foresight, patience, and wisdom. The Coalition had come looking for conquest. Instead, they had found salvation.